I've had to adjust to where I can do both.
Yeah.
We still go through man-to-man defense. We still teach us principles. I want all my players to do everything, but I
Right.
can't include some type of zone defenses like a 2-3 that can organize them early on. But
Yeah.
I don't want to lose the hunger. I don't want to lose the athleticism. Probably
Right.
my best athlete is my center in third grade.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably, right?
Yeah. Sure.
I don't want to slow down his progress because he stays
Right.
in my 2-3 in the back. So I have him play up sometimes. I go man. I have him defend the point guard. I want us doing everything. But I also know I don't want to put them in a position where it's just get out there because I want to hold on to that concept. We have no chance of winning.
Right.
So again, I'm being pulled from both sides, and I need to find that middle ground to
Yeah.
make sure that I'm looking at what my values are and how
Yeah.
to help these kids today. But I also make sure I don't limit their success in the future. And welcome everybody to the SFPA
Hey.
Sports Performance Podcast.
Yeah.
And we are giving you episode 3. We're here
Three.
in episode 3. We got through 1 and 2. And we're
Yeah.
finally giving you 3, which
We
we're really happy
rolling.
to.
We rolling.
So,
Yeah.
Coach, now that we're at 3, first of all, before I go into something else, how do you feel about us being here at episode 3?
Feel good, man. Yeah. Again, long time coming, but I feel like, now we're at 3 episodes. I feel like this is actually going to be a thing, right? Takes time to develop habits, right? We want to develop good habits. So I think we're on the right track to developing this habit where we're going to consistently be putting out things and information and content. And I think this is really good for us. So, yeah, I'm happy we're here. What about you? How would you
Hey.
think?
I feel the
That's a
same
good
way.
sign,
It's,
right?
like I said, just getting to 1, first episode,
Yep.
like, wow, episode 1. We did 2, 1 and 2. I feel like you can do that. You make it to 3.
Yeah. Oh,
It's like, ooh, now we're doing something.
doing it.
Now
Yes,
we're doing
sir.
something. So,
We in here. Yep, yeah.
anyways, let's do a quick check-in. Let the people know
Yeah.
what's been going on with life, family, sports. How's everything?
Everything's good. Everything's, moving along, man. It never stops. There's always something going on, always something to do. But yeah, everything's going really well, man. How about you, huh?
Man, we are next weekend will be our final tournament for April,
Yeah.
and we'll be almost near the end of the first month of the season. And we were talking
Yep.
about the season's almost here. We're about to get ready.
Yeah.
In about a week or so, we're about to finish our first month already.
Yeah.
So this stuff goes by fast, and before
Real
you
quick.
know it, we'll be in August. But I'm just trying to take it all in, making sure our
Yeah.
players get what they need.
Yeah.
Trying to do more to keep families involved, to support them academically. I've been asking for report cards and grades,
Man, that's
checking in with
great, man.
players.
Yeah.
So far, up to date. I haven't got everybody's stuff, but with everybody I have, I think we're like at like a 3.78 like
Yeah.
GPA across the board on
Boy,
average.
I'm telling you,
Um,
shout out my sixth graders. I saw that 3.97 on average, man. We in here. I love it.
yeah.
That's a beautiful thing, man. Yeah, for
So,
sure.
I just want to make sure that we're not just supporting the kids on the court, but we're also doing
Yeah.
stuff off the court and being consistent about it too.
Yeah.
I know there's a few kids I got to talk to individually about grades to help them, not to get on them, but I
course.
want to support them. But overall, for the most part, I'm pretty happy. I saw a ton of 4.0s, saw 4.2.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Wow.
there's a lot going on. So
Yeah.
it's not just
good.
about what happens on the court. It's,
Yeah.
it's bigger than basketball. It's about life.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
So
Always.
anyways, talking about we're almost done. We just finished our first tournament. It was a 1-day
You
event.
did.
How'd it go for you?
Let me hold on. I think is it here? Oh, it's
Oh yeah,
here.
put that out there. Put that
Oh
out there.
man, we gotta drop it.
You
Oh
gotta show
man, we
the
here,
chain.
baby.
Show
We
the
here.
chain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it went well. It went really well. I was really happy with the guy. I appreciate you. Oh man,
Yes, sir. Yes,
I didn't
sir.
I didn't do anything. I mean, the guy showed up
Hold on.
today.
Where's the
They showed
applause
up
button?
this weekend.
I
Hey.
got the applause.
Oh
Let's go.
man, yeah. Nah, man. Shout out my team, man. They showed up today. I mean, yesterday. Man, they played good. I mean, they played really well. A lot of obstacles already, like you say, a lot of obstacles through the season already with just tryout. I mean, just getting to the practices. But they showed up yesterday. I mean, and they showed up I mean, ready to go. They were fired up. They weren't nervous. I mean, they played extremely well. So I'm very proud of those guys. Um, Came away with 2 wins, which is really cool. Um, Very happy with the way they played, and more than anything, just the way they kept composed. Um, they had a decent lead for the first game, and they ended up tying it up. They didn't get rattled. They just came back and they battled back, and they were able to push it out a little bit further. So yeah, very very happy with the way they played this weekend. So yeah, it went really well. So shout out sixth grade uh, boys. Shout out to everybody.
So,
How
man,
about you?
it was up and down.
Yeah,
I'll start with the positives.
okay.
My third grade team, also I'm coaching with Coach G. Shout out Coach
Yeah,
G.
yeah,
They impressed me yesterday,
yeah,
being that for most of them, this is their first time playing AU basketball, experiencing this type of competition, walking into a building with 4 basketball courts and a bunch of teams playing.
yeah,
I was worried that they would walk in and kind of be shell shocked and just, oh, what is all this?
yeah,
But once jump ball went up, they were all in it.
yeah,
Again, I'm not one for scores, so I'm not going to say what we won by, but they showed me that they want to compete. They showed
yeah,
me that they want to play. They showed me that they can support each other. They showed me that a lot of things that I've seen older teams don't do, especially from an
yeah,
emotional standpoint, they were after it. And these kids
yeah,
enjoyed the game. And I was super happy, and they got the win on their first game.
yeah. That's
So
awesome, man. That's
I
awesome.
was into it. I
Yeah.
felt like it also
Yep.
allowed me to coach more about behavior.
Mhm.
Like when kids were about to do the celebration, or one kid hit a three and he was about to do the, this. It's like, stop
Yeah,
that.
with the old three. Yeah. No, we
Yeah,
don't do that.
it's like
Yep.
we're not doing that.
Yeah.
We're gonna make sure that as a team, we're here to play basketball. We're here to respect our opponents. They came to play today. Whatever somebody else wants to do, I'm cool with that. But I'm the type of coach where I'm like, just do your job. We
Yeah.
celebrate by working hard, supporting each other. If we get the win, good job.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not the one that's like dancing and stuff.
I feel
Second
that.
game, we lost the second game. The
Mhm.
team was a little more competitive.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the way I coached it took us out of the win, just because I was trying to make sure all the kids played. It was the first game,
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
first tournament, so it was their second game, and I wanted to show the kids, hey, this is what it's about, and give them all a chance to get out there.
Yeah.
We only lost by 5, so it
Yeah.
wasn't
Okay.
like we were winning for most of it too, which was cool.
Yeah.
But now the kids have kind of got into it, and they kind of feel the expectations. I feel like my coaching might be a little different for the
Yeah.
next
Sure.
tournament.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure everybody felt like they were in it. I saw one kid, he slammed the ball. He was frustrated. I was like,
Yeah.
come here. You don't do that.
Hmm.
Hand the ball
Yeah.
to the referee.
Yep.
You go ahead, do your job. One kid got fouled. He's like, coach, this. I no, ref. And then the rebound landed right in front of his face. He could have put it
Oh
back up and
yeah.
scored.
Yep.
I subbed him out. Not because I was mad. I had to let him
Hmm.
know that's not acceptable.
Lessons.
Don't blame the ref. They don't play for us.
Yep.
They have a job to do. Whether they call it or they don't, do your job. All right. And
Yep.
I told him that, gave him the message, and then I was able to get him back in the game.
Yep.
I'm not trying to punish you. I need to make sure
Right.
that I reinforce good behavior in the
Right.
proper way that we're supposed to
Character.
play.
Character matters, man. All ages,
But
all
man,
stages.
that third grade team, I was super happy with them.
Man, they give you life, man, when they're that age. I'm telling you, they give you life. I'm telling you, man, like when you see their faces, they are so into it. They want to show you that they care. They want to show you that they're going to listen. Like I'm telling you, man, those younger kids, when you get them, man, they give you life. I'm telling you. I'm here to tell you straight up, for sure.
Man, seventh grade team. So I coached 2 teams, a little
Yeah.
different. We lost both our games, so
Okay.
I'm not gonna hide it.
Okay.
we were. It was. Let me go back. We're dealing with a lot early as a team. I
Yep.
had a kid that got injured early in the first game, and
Yeah.
he's our starting center. So he
Yeah.
anchors a lot of what we do offensively, and he's one of
Yep.
my best defenders.
Mhm.
Another kid that was supposed to be there told me the night before he couldn't make it because of a school event on a Saturday. So those are 2 of my starters I was missing.
Yeah.
So I had been coaching practice with everybody having specific roles
Yeah.
based off their strengths, what they can do. So
Yep.
that forced me to change some of the roles, which confused some of the players. So now this week in practice, I'm going to have to really adjust what I do
Yeah.
in time for next weekend's tournament. But what I told the players, I sent them all a group message this morning to all the families, gave them my feedback, told them what I was happy with out of all of it. They got into everything we were supposed to run, from our baseline out of bounds plays, our offense against zone, our man offense, our defensive sets.
Yeah.
They called it all out. They got into the spots. They just didn't execute it that well. Now, I've only
Sure.
had about 2 weeks of practice.
Yeah.
Last week was kind of weird with the scheduling. So we haven't done a lot, but they understand the framework.
Sure.
So as long as we continue to build upon these systems, I feel like they're going to start to get it. They're going to start to make better decisions. Because I feel like we lost more because of poor decision making and not
Yeah.
thinking through and allowing ourselves to really focus and slow the game down. Guys are just kind of turning and throwing the ball away. You're throwing it where you could throw it, but you're not looking
Sure.
first to see your next options.
Right.
And so I think as guys get more into their roles, the game will slow down.
Yeah.
And then I think we'll be a little more successful.
Yeah. It's all
But
growing learning process, man. It'll take time.
yeah, I told them all, for me, it's about using this time between now and Reno towards Memorial Weekend
Yeah.
as like a really long preseason. And I don't really care about the wins and losses right now. That's not really my concern. It's making sure that every time we play in a tournament, we're building upon the things that we're learning in practice. And
Yeah.
as long as we're doing that and we're showing that progress, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
I want to win, but I'm not going to measure it off of that. So let's continue to learn, be okay with making mistakes. Let's go through our process. Let's keep getting better. And let's not worry about going to an event to win or lose the game today. Let's just make sure we're learning.
Yeah.
Because if I feel like it's just about wins, it's too much pressure. Because
Yeah.
I feel like we're just not ready yet as a team,
Mhm.
but I think we can be.
Okay.
So that's my
All
weekend.
right. Let's go. Okay.
So,
All right. Man.
anyways, anything else you want to get into before we go into the main topic about this past weekend?
Nah. I want to.
No.
I want to get into this 2-3 or not 2-3. That's the question.
Oh
I want
man,
to get into that. Let's get into it.
I feel like
Yeah.
the thumbnail should be like your picture, my
Yeah.
picture, like versus like 2-3, and then man, and we're just like
You know how I feel about
Mortal
2-3
Kombat.
zone, man. I love it. Oh man, I
Man.
love it for sure. Yeah, I know. But
Anyways, yeah, let's talk about it. So
yeah, let's talk about it.
I know we dove into this a little bit, and I
Yeah.
want to start with what are your positives, your top 5 reasons why you like using a 2-3 zone in a team setting,
Okay.
and how has it helped you for your team? So I'll let you go through your top 5 and kind of break it down from there.
Okay. For first, I'll have to rephrase what you said a little bit. Top 5 reasons why Coach Ken loves 2-3 zone
He loves
instead of
2-3
like
zone.
it. I
My
love
bad,
two
my
three
bad.
zone. No, no, it's just something that I've used it. I mean, for as long as I've been coaching, I feel like it does some really good things. But the first, one of the reasons why I really like it is it's a great word for kids to understand spacing defensively. A lot of kids, it's easy to get jumbled, especially when they're a younger age. Everybody wants to run to the ball. That's their goal when they're little kids. They want to run to the ball. So if you're able to just make sure you put them in a position so they can understand defensive spacing and where they're supposed to be, it's definitely beneficial for that. Another reason why I really like it is it just gives players ownership of a space on the floor. It just gives them a defined role. So got your 2 guys on the perimeter, give your 3 guys on the bottom, a 2 on the block, 1 in the middle. They're responsible for their space, and it allows them to take ownership of that said space when you're breaking it up into sections. And this is my space. Anybody who comes in, it just allows them to take ownership of it. Another thing I really like about it is it's really easy to learn. It's really simple, especially again with the younger kids as they get older. Things change, but for the younger kids, I feel like it's very easy to learn. And as you transition It's really easy to understand concept because you do have kids who still don't understand defensive concepts, even if they're a little older. I still think it's a very good way to teach kids a decent defensive concept that's just really, really simple to understand to get into. And another thing I really like about it, honestly, it preserves energy. They can expend a lot of energy playing defense, running up and down, back and forth. It feels like you just nonstop running. It gives you an opportunity to catch your breath, analyze, see what's happening, and just gives kids a chance to kind of decompress in a controlled manner. They're still alert, but they're able to reserve some of that energy that maybe they expended running up and down the floor in fast break situations. And another thing I really like about it, it just gives teams different looks. So sometimes, teams can get a little stagnant, or something's not really working quite well through either playing man or another zone or whatnot. But it's able to give them another look so that they have to make an offensive adjustment. So it just kind of keeps them on their toes. You can go from man to 2-3 to man to 2-3. It just depending on the scenario, depending on who's in the game. So it just gives teams different looks. So those are my reasons why I love 2-3 zone,
Sure.
especially depending on the age group.
Yeah, I think again I agree with all those reasons, and I'll talk about mine later.
Yeah.
Let's go over and shoot ahead to reasons why you wouldn't use it or concerns
Okay.
around it, based off how you coach basketball.
All right. So as players get older, it can become ineffective, especially when you're dealing with kids who maybe are a little more talented. They shoot well, and they can dribble, penetrate, drive and kick. It can become ineffective at times, and definitely could pose a problem for you defensively. Um, Another reason along the lines of that, it's not very difficult to beat if you have a smart team. If they are very competent on the floor, they understand offensive spacing. They understand flashes to the high post. They understand what the high post is supposed to do. To have a very strong high post player, he can shoot, he can pass out of it, he can, bang down there. So I think that there's a couple of things along that line of just as they get older, it's not difficult to for teams to beat. Another thing I feel that could be a disadvantage. It just keeps teams complacent. Again, they get to a point where this is my space. This is my side of the floor. If the ball bounces anywhere outside of that space, if they're the closest player, they don't necessarily go up there to play defense. So again, it just helps, makes teams get complacent in that one role. Another thing that I don't like about it that could be a negative is it doesn't build good defensive habits. It doesn't build good defensive fundamentals, especially with the bigger players who are, the centers, quote unquote, depending on how tall they are. They just get stuck down there and they don't move their feet well. They don't move laterally well. They don't close out well. So defensive fundamentals is definitely lacking if you just stay with a 2-3 zone. Another thing that I feel is maybe a disadvantage is it just stops kids from taking the initiative. So again, we talk about the ball bouncing or somebody being open, but it's not your space on the floor. They won't necessarily go after the ball because that's not their spot and that's not their space. So they won't defend that area because they don't understand rotations. So that's another disadvantage I think the 2-3 zone has.
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah,
um,
sorry. I know I talked a little bit, but those are the those
no,
those are my reasons,
um,
man. Yeah,
so yeah, I don't disagree with any of your reasons,
yeah,
and I think there's a time and place for everything.
yeah.
Every tool has a purpose. For me, I think even years ago, I think I made a video and put on YouTube about why you
You
shouldn't do
did.
it.
Where is it?
I
You got
think
to see
I
it.
don't even know. It's somewhere
You
out
don't
there
know?
in the world.
All right, in the
Um,
ether, huh?
yeah, I so let me go through my top five, and then I'll
Yeah,
kind of go
yeah.
from there. So top 5 reasons why I would use a 2-3 zone, or I do. So for me, it gives, especially for younger kids, it gives them defined
Yeah,
roles. So kids can get confused easily, and so if kids are able to just focus on a certain area, The ball goes here, you go here. The ball goes here, you go here. You good? I
Yep.
got it, coach. So it eliminates that frustration from kids kind of not knowing what they're doing if they're playing like a man-to-man defense. Not that they can't do it, but if you give them less information, it's easier to absorb and
Yeah.
easier for them to go ahead and execute. Number two, it's easy to take advantage of teams that don't have a good ball handler and
Yeah.
can't shoot. I remember when I started coaching, or even before I started coaching, my sister was playing basketball in middle school, and her team was like undefeated for like 3 years in middle school,
Yeah.
and they'd always run like some zone. And I remember looking like, yeah, you can even do even more if you add this trap to it, because that team they can't dribble in this.
Right.
And my whole thinking was, how do I just take advantage of all these weaker teams? And in a lot of cases, you can use it for that. If a
Sure.
team they can't dribble, use a 2-3 or some type of zone defense. Get your traps. That's
Sure.
one way to use it too. That's also my third point. Easier to set up some trapping situations if kids are already in their spots in the zone defense.
Yep.
Number four, great change of pace. I remember I was watching a college game. It was Duke versus I forgot who they're playing, but Duke was losing the game,
Yeah.
and Coach K went from man to zone and went to a 2-3 zone. And in that, they used it to slow the game down because the other team was just running on them and they were just
Yeah.
scoring quickly. So he went to the zone to slow down the pace of the game, and they were able to get back into it. I think they might have actually won that game
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Okay.
So as just a change of pace to kind of allow your team to kind of settle down, slow the other team down,
Yeah.
it's a great way to kind of get them into their half court offense and get into your half court defense to where you can really contain and see what's happening.
Yeah.
And then my last key is if you have a smaller team, which I tend to have, it allows you to get all five players to play together and to where you're not really exposed in certain
Yes.
areas if you don't have the size or the speed to defend individually like you
100%.
would in man to man. Not that you can't play, help defense or gap in a man to man setting, but if you do have a team that's maybe undersized, it's a great way to kind of, you know, protect the interior. You still got to defend, those perimeter shots.
Yeah.
But for me, it's really been a benefit whenever I've had a smaller team.
Yep.
5 reasons why I don't want to use it. Now, this is
You don't like using it, but you
trying
don't
to be
want
nice.
to. I feel you. I get it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So when I was going through this the other day with my third grade team,
Yeah.
and Coach G was coaching with me, and I told her, I was like, don't tell Coach Derek I'm teaching them a 2-3 zone. And I turn around and he's right behind me.
He's staring at you like, "What are you teaching
You
him,
know,
coach? What's up, coach?"
and he
Oh
he didn't
no,
get it at
man.
first, and then once he
Yeah.
saw him, he's like, "Oh, welcome to the dark side." I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, I guess
Yeah.
so.
Welcome. Yo.
So reasons why I'm not a fan of teaching zone defense to younger kids or kids learning basketball. Number one for me, it doesn't help players become aggressive defending on the ball. I love having teams that pressure the basketball. I like players being aggressive. I want to see players get after it. Not saying you can't do that. You can always teach that, build that.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of left on your own, say you guard him, go get it. You've got to just learn how to do everything, right?
Yeah.
Got to be quick,
Yeah.
defend, get hungry, get after it. I
Yep.
can't be complacent. I'm
Yeah.
always ready to do something. If he passes,
Yep.
I got to watch him cut. If he handles the ball, I got to watch him drive or shoot. Whatever you can do, I got to guard. So
Yep.
in the zone defense, sometimes I don't get players that are put in those positions to learn that, especially when they're younger.
Yeah.
Number two, it keeps kids stuck in certain areas. Obviously, in the zone defense, you're responsible for certain areas. When the ball moves here, you go here. The ball moves here, you go here. But you're kind of more relegated to just your spaces on the floor
Yep.
based on the rotation of the ball. So I don't really get to learn how to defend in other areas of the court other than where I'm taught in my zone defense and whatever you're running, right?
Yeah.
Against smarter teams, it's easier to beat. If a team knows where to go, knows where the holes are, has someone that can drive, you guys can shoot the ball, which is also my fourth point. if you have a team with good shooters, it exposes you on the perimeter unless your team closes out quickly. So
Yeah.
my reasons 3 or 4. If you're playing against a team with a good ball handler, dribble penetration, drive, kick. If you're playing against a team with good shooters, it exposes you out there.
Yeah.
And number 5, it doesn't help the kid that gets stuck in the middle,
Yeah.
especially for younger players. Now, this is more
Yeah.
personal to me.
Or individual, right? Personal. Sure. Sure.
When I was in elementary and middle school, I was always the tallest kid. I'm 6'2", so you can tell my community isn't full of a bunch of tall people. But
Sure.
I was always the tallest guy. And so every coach I ever played for ran 2-3 zone or 3-2, but mostly 2-3. And where was I stuck? Stay
In the
under the
middle.
basket,
Yeah.
get big, move your head around,
Block.
get
Right.
big, move your head around, rebound. Who got to
Hmm.
defend? The smaller guards. They got to be at
He's
the
right.
top, move around. I'd have to outlet
Yep.
pass to them. They'd get to have all the
Yep.
fun. And I'm back in here doing this. Only thing that saved me, long time ago, people used to play outside.
A
People used to go to
long
a
time
park
ago.
and
Oh
use a thing
yeah.
called a basketball court that was
That's
outdoors.
right. Yep. No
No
gym.
one uses that anymore.
Right.
But the only reason why I was able to do anything in basketball is because we played all the
Yep.
time
Yep.
outside. People we knew, people we didn't know. I'd go visit my uncle in Texas. My aunt would drop me off at a park. I don't know anybody here, but they're
Yeah.
hooping. I walk up.
You're open.
Let's play.
Yeah. Yep.
Again, if I was just a kid that just listened to my coach and just did that, I'd be doing this all day.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I'm getting big in the middle. No,
Yeah.
I have to learn how to defend. I have to
Yes.
learn how to move around. I have to learn how
Yep.
to defend screens. I learned how to guard a shooter, how to guard a ball handler, how to communicate, everything. You
Yep.
limit a kid if you just say, hey, my third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grader, for the next 5, 6 years, you just stay under the basket on defense. That's all you get
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's probably the biggest reason why I don't like teaching zone defense is because it
Yeah.
limits those kids that are your big kids on the team from learning if that's all you have them do. You might win
Yeah.
some games. Good
Yeah.
job. But you're saying, I'm going to sacrifice this kid's development and future for this weekend's game. And I
Yeah.
don't like that. So
Yeah. I get that.
let me get off my
I
box,
get
step down
that. Yeah.
before I get emotional.
I got you. Yeah. I feel you. That makes
Yeah.
sense. I get it.
So going to reasons why, and I think that was more from, I kind of got to the individual perspective, but we talked more from a team perspective. Going to
Yeah.
you, if you're just a trainer, you work
Yep.
with a kid one on one, what are reasons you would help this kid learn the 2-3 zone if you're working with him
Mhm.
one on one, and why you would say, I don't like you doing this? Like, let's go through the positives and negatives if you're just a trainer and not his basketball coach.
Yeah. So I think let's go to the positives, right? Because we talked about the negatives individually. You have some really good points. We talked about not, being super aggressive defensively, not getting on ball, just only worrying about your spot. So I think I just want to talk about more so the positives of it. Um, it teaches kids, for me, if I was a trainer, it just teaches kids to jump to the ball. Because a lot of times when you say, okay, let's work on your lateral movement, kids won't do a crossover step. They do a shuffle. It takes like two, three, four shuffles to get to a spot. So if you have like a triangle, let's say you have a triangle drill, you have a ball at the free throw line, you have two on the block, each one on one block, one on another block. How are you going to transition to turn your hips to get to the block fast enough to rotate? So in that perimeter, in that box, you have to be able to utilize your lateral quickness, crossover step, and your hip turns, in order to get to that spot quicker. So for me, I think one benefit of teaching a kid a 2-3 zone is they learn how to quickly get to the spot and efficiently. So instead of shuffling, instead of backpedaling, it allows them to understand hip placement, foot placement, crossover step, getting to the spot, beating a guy to the ball, That's one thing that I feel teaching a kid a 2-3 zone in a confined space individually, they can help them transition into a man-to-man defense. It just teaches kids how to jump to a spot as opposed to shuffling to a spot, backpedaling to a spot. Because a lot of times that's what kids are going to do as a default. Because even during a warm, okay, shuffle, and the kids will shuffle out. But there's a reason to use a run. There's a reason to use a shuffle. There's a reason to use a crossover step. There's a reason to backpedal. There's a reason for all these different defensive movements. So I think in a 2-3 zone, it teaches kids how to jump to a spot quickly and efficiently with using a minimal amount of energy. That's one reason. Another positive I think is really good is they teaches kids how to close out in short quarters. So if you have a kid on the elbow and the ball's on the wing, whatever side, you could pick one. You have to be able to jump to the spot quickly and efficiently and get your hands up, shot, hand in the passing lane. In that confined space in a 2-3 zone, you have to be able to do that very quickly. So when you talk about jumping to the ball, closing out to the ball quickly and efficiently, that's another thing that teaching a kid a 2-3 zone, because we're talking about half court offenses, we're talking about short quarters. So they have to be able to get to a spot really quickly for a deflection, for a shot contest, for a steal, for whatever reason. You have to be able to do it in short quarters. And I think playing a 2-3 zone, if you can teach them how to move quickly and efficiently with using a minimum amount of energy, that's definitely going to be beneficial when they do transition out of the 2-3 zone into man.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking, do trainers even teach defense, or is it just
I
offense all day?
I don't know.
um,
I think they
I don't
do.
know.
I mean, I know you do when it comes to like defense, right? When you're talking about speed and agility, the things that you're teaching these kids when you do your trainings, it is defensive based because they don't have a ball in their hands. They're not worried about dribbling, any of that stuff. So, I mean, some of them do. I know you do. So we'll
I
just go
try
with
to.
that.
I
And I know
try to.
you do for sure.
Um, See, my take on teaching it again, it's hard for me to get past my personal experience,
Right.
understanding that if I didn't have the ability just to play without anybody around me, just friends at the
Right.
park, whoever, open runs, I wouldn't have been able to learn anything else if I
Right.
just did what my coaches taught me, right?
Right.
And thinking, okay, if I'm gonna play zone defense, or if I'm working with a kid that's playing zone defense,
Yeah.
how do I implement skills to still help them be aggressive, but
Sure.
not just limit their ability to play at the next level? Especially if
Right.
I'm looking at it from a standpoint of the center or
Right.
your center, right? Now,
Right.
the center's kind of a dying breed nowadays, right? But offensively, I would say. Defensively, though, if a lot of these younger AAU teams are running a zone defense, the center's still alive if
Yeah.
he's the guy in the middle in your 2-3 zone. So offensively, the center may be dead in today's game of basketball
Sure.
to some degree.
Yeah.
Defensively, in a 2-3 zone, they're not.
Yeah.
And and there's a study I mentioned before that someone talked to me about, and I have to find it, but in essence, what the study found was around the age of 12, a child has reached whatever his maximum athleticism will be
Okay.
at the age of 12. So, not
Wow.
saying that as he gets 13, 14, 15, 20, whatever, he's not going to get bigger, faster, and stronger.
Yeah.
Obviously, as he gets older, he's going to get bigger, faster, and stronger just because he's
Yeah.
growing up,
Okay.
right? You can work out, you can train, that will be there. But the total capacity that you could have reached, whatever your maximum potential would have been,
Yeah.
was set around the age of 12.
Wow.
And that could be based on a number of factors.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at that study and applying it to kids what we're teaching, why does a kid reach their potential by 12 and what helps them? Well, they're playing, they're exposed to different demands. Again, playing against a quick person means I have to become quicker. Playing
Yes.
against a stronger person means I've got to get stronger. Playing
Right.
against a guy with better skill means I need better skill. But if the
Yeah.
body isn't exposed to greater demands, just like working out, if I want to get bigger muscles, I have to expose my body to a greater load and
Right.
incrementally increase that over time, which will
Mhm.
increase my muscle mass.
Right.
Same thing, if I'm not exposed to greater talent or allowed to play against that talent and I'm just stuck in the back all day, I'm never going to develop those skills. And
Right.
if you're going to ask a kid that's older in high school that never learned that to now turn the switch and flip it on and now become that great athlete, they're not going to.
Yeah.
It's kind of too late at that point. You kind of are who
Sure.
you are. You can get
Mhm.
faster, but you might have had more in the tank if somebody allowed you to do those things as a kid. So
Sure.
for me, from that standpoint, I'm like, yeah, okay, if you're going to play zone defense, cool, but I don't want to take away who you could be
Sure.
just because I wanted to run that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what a lot of coaches get into is where they work with these younger kids, and for the win, I'll take that today if it means I made you
Yeah.
slower yesterday
Yeah.
or tomorrow, I should say,
Sure. Sure.
because you might have a kid for 1 year and never see him again,
Yeah. Yeah.
but his
Yeah.
life is still going to go on, and his potential to do
Sure.
whatever is going to go on. So
Right.
for me, I'm always like, I'll teach man-to-man defense and deal with the loss until we pick it up.
Mm,
But I've also been where I don't want to frustrate these kids. These kids
yes.
get frustrated. Parents get frustrated
Very
if you're
quickly.
not winning or competitive.
Very
So
quickly.
I've had to adjust to where I can do both.
Yeah.
We still go through man to man defense. We still teach those
Mhm.
principles. I want all my players to do everything, but I
Right.
can't include some type of zone defenses like a 2-3 that can
Mhm.
organize them early on. But
Yeah.
I don't want to lose the hunger. I don't want to lose the athleticism. Probably
Right.
my best athlete is my center on third grade.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably, right?
Yeah. Sure.
I don't want to slow down his progress because he stays
Right.
in my 2-3 in the back. So I
Mhm.
have him play up sometimes. I go
Yeah.
man. I have him defend the point guard. I want us doing everything. But I also know I don't want to put them in a position where it's just we get out there because I want to hold on to that concept. We have no chance of winning.
Right.
So again, it's I'm being pulled from both sides, and I need to find that middle ground to just make
Yeah.
sure that I'm looking at what my values are and how
Yeah.
do I help these kids today, but also make sure I don't limit their success in the future when they leave me.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. I've been running a 2-3 zone. I mean, this is the first year that I didn't start with it since I've had my guys, and I've had those guys since like second, third grade. Um, so I understand what you're saying. Um, but when we are at practice, I did go over man principles since I've had them. We do man to man drills because there are a lot of man principles that accompany a 2-3 zone or any zone that you're going to do. Like for me, I have the ball pressured up the floor at 3/4 court, have a guy at half court playing like cornerback, and have my guys around free throw line extended. Um, and if anybody comes down, they drag them down. And if they switch sides, they switch sides. But we get into our sets. But I do run man principles in my 2-3 zone ball pressure to keep guys in check. The faster you can pressure the ball, the the harder it's going to be for them to get into an offensive set. Everybody, when you're talking about basketball, it's going to be off of an action when the offense starts, whether it be a DHO, whether it be a pass. Most of the time, it's going to be off a pass. That's when the offense starts. Then people start moving. If you start your ball pressure early, it's going to allow you to slow them down enough to where they can't get into their set, which means they're going to be uncomfortable, which means you guys are going to be in your set and they're already comfortable in that 2-3 zone. So it's going to be easier to defend. So there are some things that you can do to enhance a 2-3 zone by adding in man principles in certain spots so that it'll give them the opportunity to play on ball defense. But as you stated, the guy in the middle doesn't have that opportunity. So I totally understand where you went with that. And I totally understand that. So now we're transitioning out of a 2-3 zone into more of a kind of a pack line hybrid system where they do have to get into the gap. They do have to play help side. My weak side guy is always going to be in the low spot, which is right in the basket, flat back to the basket. So I do have, I am teaching them some man principles now. But I think running the 2-3 zone early on definitely helped with them understanding spacing, where
Sure.
they are on the floor, how to jump to the ball, and taking ownership of that space, and also with trapping. Um, Definitely did help with that. So I definitely think a 2-3 zone is beneficial for any coach to have in his bag. And I really feel like it's something that's definitely can help you guys keep down the level of frustration, because there's not very many locked down defending third graders, second graders, fifth graders, fourth graders, where they won't get blown by immediately. There are some, but a majority of them, one move, one punch, dribble, crossover, they're usually going to get beat pretty good. And having those guys behind you to have your back in those instances is definitely an ease of mind for most kids to know that they have their teammates behind them. So that's another reason why it's effective. Just mentally, it just keeps kids engaged and knowing that they have support behind them, and knowing that if they do make a defensive mistake and they do miss a rotation, they do have some form of backup if everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. But I think really having a 2-3 is definitely beneficial to have in your bag, just to make sure you give just a different look, and just to keep your kids mentally in a space where if they're playing a 2-3 zone, especially if they're comfortable with it, they're always going to feel like they have an opportunity to either get back in the game, win the game, or just stay competitive. But if you go straight man and they're just getting their heads beaten every single weekend, every single game they play, that's deflating, especially if they're young, and just for everybody involved. So I think it's definitely beneficial to do. But if you feel like um, you're doing the kids a disservice, again, I do understand that as well. Because you definitely want to make sure you're helping kids put their best foot forward when they leave your program. You want, if they ever leave the program, you want them to feel like I learned a lot from them, and you don't want them to go, you learned that there, like that's all they had you do. Like that's something that you kind of want to avoid. But as I know, we coach with what we have, and like you said, we have an undersized teams the majority of the time in our divisions. Every time we go in a tournament, we're the smallest team. So we just have to make do with what we have. And 2-3 zone, it helps even with rebounding and boxing out to do the right things. You have three guys around the basket at all times, so definitely helps with that too. So there's definitely some pros, but definitely cons too. So like you're right, you just got to find that balance of when to use it and not to use it, and just make sure that you are maintaining those defensive man principles in practice, so at least you're getting it somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you brought up how you guys are kind of utilizing pack line concepts in your defense, man-to-man concepts in your defense. Um, I was just thinking about that time that I was running a pack line defense with my teams, and
I remember you told me about that. Oh
so we
my
played in
goodness.
a basketball league a few years ago, and one of the
Yeah.
rules was you can't use zone defense. I think it was in the first
Yeah.
half. All right,
Yeah.
so we get down the court, we transition, we're in our pack line, and then the coach screams like he caught me cheating on the test. He's using 2-3, 2-3. Look, I look over like,
Oh
what are you
man, come
talking about? He's like,
on.
have you been watching our players this whole time? Every time you pass the basketball, we move with you. Our player moves, they're staying with the same guy. We're playing man to man. I was like, I got a guy on the ball. I got guys in the gaps. We're in the help side. We're like, watch us. Don't just look at how we start. It's like
Whoever
you
that guy
guys set up in
was,
five out.
stop it.
If you're in five out, what are we gonna look like? You've got a
Right.
guy at the top. You got guys on the
Right.
wings, guys in the
Right.
corners. If we're in man to man, where are guys going to be? One guy's guarding the guy at the top. I got two guys in the gap guarding the guys on
Yeah.
the wing. Got two guys
Right.
on the help going to goes over here. Until you move, we don't move.
Right.
He's like, I'm like, you clown, like we're playing two, like,
Dude,
so I'm,
whoever you were, coach,
mm,
whoever you are who did that, stop it. Play the
stop it.
game.
I
Stop
don't
it.
know.
Don't
I
do
start getting
that.
personal.
Oh man, come on.
Anyways, no, like I'm still a big proponent of man-to-man defense, and I've
Yeah.
I've used pack line systems a lot. I've studied a lot of video and stuff from Tony Bennett, head coach at Virginia, University of
Yeah.
Virginia. They won a national title a few years ago.
Yeah.
Sean Miller, they get a bunch of coaches that utilize it in their system. So I've tried to put a lot of their concepts in our program and what I've been teaching.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have to scale it because we're
Of
teaching
course.
kids and they've got,
Right.
Division I NCAA players.
Right.
So it can't be exactly the same, but
Of
I
course.
can utilize a lot of the concepts within our defense, which
Mhm.
has helped.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to just a 2-3 zone and utilizing it, I've had to get to the point where I understand that for me, I can do both. I can
Yeah.
teach man to man and I can teach zone, but I like to make sure that I'm teaching those zone concepts first.
Yeah.
And I mean, sorry, the man to man concepts
Man, I
first,
was gonna say,
because then it
oh,
makes my zone stronger, right?
yeah, it
So,
does.
like for you, your your team gets after it. You guys are really
Yeah.
aggressive. You guys move
Mhm.
around a lot. You guys like to pressure the basketball even in your zone. I don't think you get to that unless you are teaching man to man principles,
Yeah.
right? Unless you teach them how to get on the ball, how to be aggressive, how to move. And all your players are pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I think that's just development over time based off how you're coaching them, allowing them to use their speed, allowing them to build their speed, allowing them to be aggressive, allowing them to make decisions, allowing them to think quickly in a short
Yeah.
amount of time and make the right decision. You don't get that if you just sit in a zone and just point and look side to side.
Right.
You've got to actually practice being athletic and moving around.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes your team efficient as a zone defensive team, because there are a lot of qualities in that zone that mimic man to man. I listened to a coach a few years ago. Mike Hopkins used to be a assistant with Syracuse, and I went to one of the coaches' clinics that he spoke at. He's not the head
Yeah.
coach at Washington, but he talked about how our man to man is based off, or no, our zone is based off of man to man principles. Like that's what makes us so effective at
Yeah.
Syracuse. It's like, yeah, we might have a bunch of tall, lanky guys that are quick and get out there, but
Right.
a lot of teams have that, at the Division I level. So
Yeah.
what makes us running a 2-3 zone at Syracuse different, that he's saying, not me, what he's saying is because we teach man to man and our concepts based off of that. And our zone defense is schemed differently for everybody. So when they're playing
Yeah.
against a team with a good 3-point shooter, when they're playing against a team that has an amazing guard, when they're playing against a guy, that's good in the post, it
Yeah.
changes based off who they're playing against. It's not just one thing. And
Yeah.
it's all based off of how do we do all of these things that you would do in man to
Right.
man, but we just put it into a zone system that fits what
Mhm.
we do. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of what you guys do are very similar. And I think that's what makes you guys effective, especially on defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
have you gone about teaching your kids? I know I kind of talked about it, but I'd rather throw it back to you. Teaching your
Yeah.
kids those man to man concepts. And what are some drills or maybe even things that you do to really harp on that to make your kids more effective in the zone?
So I think the biggest problem that I see when kids play zone is that they're waiting for the defense to come to them. They're just being very reactive. Sometimes most times it's better to be proactive than it is to be reactive. So if you're in a 2-3 zone, usually the guys are under the 3-point line. So essentially, they're just waiting for the offense to do something. And if you start doing that, now your reaction time is going to be slow because you're basically waiting for them to do something. So instead of waiting for them to come down, I have them go up a little higher, and I have very specific spots on the floor where I have my guys stand. So essentially, what I'm doing is I'm playing on ball defense immediately from three-quarter court up. So there's always pressure on the ball. The guys are in their spots cross half court. So again, I want to slow the offensive player down who's bringing the ball up the floor. They're not going to be able to get into a press break because I only have one defender at the three-quarter court. So I'm basically going to wait for them to come down.
Mhm.
If you get them earlier, then waiting for them to come down the court is going to allow you to slow them down. So now they're not able to get into the offensive set that they want to run. So essentially, what I'm trying to do is disrupt their flow so they can't make that initial pass or that initial GHO so they can start what they want to do. So essentially, all we're doing in practice, we're working on full court, man to man defensive drill. The goal is to turn the offensive player from going one way to the other. So you want to make sure that you're able to turn your hips, staying in front. Um, that everybody has to do that. We match up, we go up the floor a couple of times. We have to make sure we're able to do that because there's a time to run with the guy, there's a time to backpedal, there's a time to shuffle, there's a time to crossover step. All these defensive components, there's a time to utilize them. So you're doing that full court defensive drill allows them to utilize all those different steps and all those different techniques in order to stay in front of their guy. Um, but initially, I just want to make sure that on ball pressure is always there. So I really harp on that at practice. If I see a guy waiting under the 3 point line for somebody to come up, I stop the drill, explain what I want, and again, increasing the amount of movement. On ball pressure is where the defense starts. That's going to be the anchor of it. If you're not getting on ball pressure, then you're not doing your job. So
Yeah.
that's how it starts. And then from there, then we start transitioning into what happens if they come. Do we switch? Do we stay? Are you going to let them through? But again, that just kind of depends on what offensive set they're running. There's a guy at the high post. They have someone in the block, someone short corner. Everything, it always changes, but initially it's just going to be on ball defense. That's where it starts. And if you're getting good pressure on ball, that's definitely going to help you guys, um, you know, transition out of your 2-3 zone into a man concept. But yeah, just on ball pressure all day. Yeah, you have to start with that. If you guys don't pressure on ball well, that's something that you're definitely gonna have to pick up real quick if you want to play right man to man. That's what it's about. On ball defense and even off ball defense, making sure you're in your right spot, you're in defensive stance correctly, and get help side gap. This on ball defense that you have to be on ball.
Nice. So I think we've given a lot of information. So I'm going to kind of summarize it a little bit.
Yeah,
So you like 2-3 zone. I don't.
I love 2-3 zone.
You've been using it a
No, I
lot.
love it.
I do
Yes.
use it
Yeah.
with hesitation, but I use it
Yeah.
because there are times where that tool is necessary.
Yeah.
I would rather teach man defense always, but I know
Sure.
that I can't always do that. So I have to have that give and take. There are benefits to using it, which we've
Yeah.
seen, which, again, if you watch basketball at any level, everyone runs zone, everyone's man.
Yeah.
The Warriors have gone to 2-3 at times. We've seen them
They
use it in
have.
the finals, right? So
Yep. Hmm.
it's not just a little kid defense. I know when
Right.
coaches say, like, play real basketball. It's like, it
Right.
is basketball. Stop it.
Yeah.
It's like,
I've heard
if you
two
can't
threes
beat
for the
us,
week.
stop it.
One coach said,
So
"Oh, 2 threes for the week." Like, what does that mean? 2 threes for the week? What are you talking about? Yeah, I've heard all
I don't
kinds of
know.
stuff, man. When people see that, it's kind of interesting. But yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
So again, my only defiance against it is more of a personal experience as a kid and
Sure.
understanding that if I didn't grow up in the 80s and 90s where we went outside and actually played against other people at a park, I would have learned nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I see kids in high school that are the biggest kids on the team at 6'3" and they're your center, I'm like, that kid's not playing in college.
Right.
But if he was taught how to just play basketball, how to be athletic, how to move, how to defend, how to guard, how to do everything at a younger age, that
Yep.
6'3" kid might be your guard with the potential to play at the next level. But he's not going to
Yeah.
college as a 6'3" center.
Yeah.
But you have your like 5'6" guard that gets to do everything. And now he's supposed to be the future. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that like you can't have smaller players play at the next level. What I'm saying is that, and again, I know I'm going to catch a lot of, but basketball usually has a lot of tall players,
They do.
right? The NBA is full of tall guys. Like when you see an NBA
Yeah.
player, that guy is big. If you go to like
Sure.
most colleges, they're usually 6 foot and above.
Yep.
So people look at Steph Curry and think he's small.
He's six
Compared
four.
to the regular average person, he's big. He
Sir.
just looks small compared to NBA players on
Right.
average, right?
Yeah.
So if I have a kid that's about 6 foot, 6'2", 6'3",
Yeah.
and I say you're my center, that's probably the one kid, if he was taught basketball, just
Yeah.
physically would have had a chance to play at the next level.
Sure.
But when I see this 6'3" kid with slow feet, has no
Yeah.
speed, no agility, can't defend
Right.
anybody, can't shoot, can't handle the ball, I'm like, well, there you go. That's it. So
Yep.
I look at that as me. Like, I could have been that kid.
Yeah.
Oh, I would have sucked. But
Yeah.
I thank the fact that we actually used to go outside. And that's
Yeah.
the only thing that saved me. So for
Yeah.
me, I try to preserve some of that when I'm teaching basketball to kids and know that although a kid might be this size now, I've seen kids that are this small now. And then the next year I see them, they're this big.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
I got to teach you everything because I never know what you're
Everything.
going to be. You
Yes.
never know how tall you're going to get, how short you're going to
Yep.
be. I don't know. But I do know that when you're in high school and you have the chance to play at the next level, I don't want to say, oh, I held you back because I didn't teach you these things,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
again, in the zone defense, I'm not saying I don't use it, that it can't be used. I just
Yeah.
have to be aware of what I'm teaching and make sure that I'm not holding back a child's future
Yeah.
just for the sake of a win today, right?
Sir. Yep.
But I don't know. Again, let me get off my box, step down. Stop running 2-3,
Oh
everyone. No,
man.
it's okay. Do what you
Yeah.
got to do. Just
Yeah.
make sure you're keeping the kids in mind. And again, I feel like you give a good balance to it. I
Yeah.
think you use it. And I look at all your kids. All your kids are athletic. All your kids are quick. All your kids are aggressive. All your kids
Yeah.
can defend. I think your point guards could even run the 5 in your 2-3, right? Just
Yeah.
because I think they can box out, they can
Yep.
communicate, they're quick to get in
Mhm.
position, they can
Yeah.
rebound.
Yeah.
Again, you've got like guys 1-5, and you can just like interchange them, and they can do
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
which I think is a testament to what you're teaching the kids, which is great. So I think it's a perfect example for any coach to look at that once win a
Appreciate
two
you.
three.
Yeah. I appreciate you,
But
brother.
yeah, I don't know, man. What else you got on this topic? I can keep going, but in the wrong
Yeah.
direction.
I feel like we covered a lot. And again,
Mhm.
this is not to tell any coaches run 2-3 and not run 2-3. I think, like said, there's so many defensive schemes that you can run. Like you said, you never know who you're going to run into. Um, but I also will always say it's better to have more in your arsenal than to not.
Yeah,
So if there's a way that you can expand your kids, your kids' basketball knowledge, it's definitely going to help them later on in life because you never know. They may get drafted to Syracuse. Oh, 2-3 zone. Let's get in here, right? It's going to be a completely different from the way you taught it, but at least they'll have an understanding, even if how small it is. It's a small sample size of what it is. Um, Not saying it would help them or hurt them, but any defensive concepts you can teach them, other than just one, is definitely going to help their basketball knowledge in general and understanding what to do when they're off the ball and understand what they do when they're in the gap or when they're in the help. Um, it's definitely going to be beneficial to them. So as long as you're keeping that in the front of your mind, is making sure you're preparing them. That's what we're talking about. Helping kids be prepared for the next level, preparing for high school, preparing for potential college, whatever it is, preparing for the next season. Um, as long as you're taking the time to prepare them for next year, um, and their growth. I mean that should be your goal, and that's my goal. That's your goal. Just try to prepare them as best we can for the next challenge, whether it be the next game, whether it be next season, whether it be Reno, whether it be Vegas, doesn't matter. We're trying to prepare them to play basketball, and expanding their knowledge is definitely going to help them with that.
sure. This is not basketball related, but I keep looking at myself in the camera. And if anybody's wondering why I keep looking here, 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 and here, my camera's here. I'm looking at us on the camera here. My notes are here, and I've got more notes over here. So I'm like
Oh
looking at
man,
things that I want to see from you, from me, looking at
he's
our video. So if
multitasking,
I'm never
people.
staring
He's
here and I'm always like this
multitasking,
and this
people.
and this,
Yeah,
I'm looking at all this stuff around me. So if anybody's like,
yeah.
"What's wrong with this guy?" I can't
I see. Yeah, well,
stop looking around. Um, just
oh
clarifying.
man,
I got stuff. I
yeah.
got notes,
Right on, man.
video,
Technology.
camera,
Hey,
notes.
technology, bro. Technology. We
Um,
here.
man,
Yeah,
technology. Anyways, I think that's cool. Good information.
yeah.
I think we can wrap at that with episode. Wrap with that, with
Yeah.
episode 3, and
Yes, sir.
get ready for episode 4.
Got it.
Coach, any last comments you want to give the people,
Oh, shout out SFBA. Um, you
sir?
know, again, first weekend. We have a lot more weekends to come. Appreciate everybody, all the parents, everybody who's here with us, all the support that you guys are giving us as coaches, the support that you're giving your kids as well. It's definitely helpful. Definitely appreciate it. And yeah, let's keep pushing, get this year done, and yeah, let's keep grinding, keep hustling. Let's go. 10% more hustle. It's coming to you soon. 10% more hustle coming to you soon.
So likewise, thank you everybody for sticking with us for episode 1, 2, and now 3. If you've seen all the episodes, you can help us out. Make sure, I don't think I said this, like, share, and subscribe. Do all that stuff that they say to do on YouTube. Let's get those numbers up. We've hit over 300 subscribers.
Oh man, let's go!
To us,
no,
it's a milestone.
That's
3 episodes.
Man, let's do it. 300 people.
I'm good.
Man, I'm in here. I love it.
Let's keep it going.
All right.
Anyways, that's it from us. Coach Ken, Coach White. Thank you. Episode 3, episode 4 is coming out soon.
Good. Hey.
Check y'all later. Peace.
Peace.